We had really weird weather conditions, and you can tell they were kind of confused by the amount of snow. They'd never seen it like that.
The last thing in my mind was the actual walk from high camp up to the peak. It was more about we walked through some unbelievable snow the day before.
There was occasions here where you would just have to stand face into the snow and just lean into it and wait for those big gusts to blow away, because it felt like you might just get flattened by it, knocked off your feet.
It was just so cold and windy. That's what I remember the most. And all three of us were having problems with actually feeling our toes, and we were a bit concerned about that.
We had Sherpas in front of us with ice picking out stairs for us because there was just no track. We had fog all around us, so there was a 100-foot drop, half a foot to the right of you that you didn't know just because of the fog in there, and you're just following foot by foot of these Sherpas and porters, and the trust level there was astronomical.
Buckle is the gateway to the Everest region. It's situated at 2,800 metres, and this is the start point of the trek of their journey into the mountains.
So there was a wide variety of people in our group. You had people from early 20s up to close to 60. I just think it was amazing that you've got this wide span of ages, yet everyone can do it.
We took a group of people from diverse backgrounds that really started their own mental preparation, some up to 12 months ago, from sea level to the top of a 6,500 metre peak. They made a significant commitment and personal contract with themselves and each other from the moment they arrived at 2,500 metres to do everything that they needed to. They proceeded from 2,500 metres through 3,500 metres to 4,000 metres through reports of avalanche, the heaviest snowfalls that the area had ever recorded at 5,000 metres in 2 days.
News would trickle down from further up the mountain that there'd been an avalanche. There was more snow than anyone had ever seen, and there had been people that had died, had been killed by the avalanches. And it's humbling, to know that you are in a place that is deadly. But the fact that we had the crew that we did with the professionalism that they had, we were confident that we'd have no problem getting up there.
He told us don't listen to the other groups because maybe they're with inexperienced guides, maybe they don't have good acclimatization schedules, maybe they have poor equipment. I wasn't worried about avalanches or anything like that. If Nick said the pass was open, the pass was open, and he said it was safe, it was safe. So I just put all my faith in what they were telling us and relaying to us. And
you definitely think about it, but just that reassurance from Nick and the team that this is why we take so many precautions, this is why we are the best at what we do, is because we know what can happen. We're not taking any chances.
It's really intense there. Everything is just so much more exhausting. It's so much more difficult. Everything is just sort of, amplified. So you get there and you think, oh, no, I'll be fine. But even just a tiny little sniffle makes you think, oh my God, am I going to get a cold?
The fact that it was completely on you. It's literally you in the wilderness and that's it. And that was really exciting.
The fact that people can travel in the Himalayas with us for 2 to 3 weeks, totally undistracted, is also a fantastic benefit of the program. They'll be away from mobile phones, they'll be away from computers, they'll be away from all the distractions that they experience in their Western lives. They get to totally immerse themselves in the environment. That's incredibly important for us.
I have been overseas a few times before, but there's always internet, there's always a McDonald's, there's always Wi-Fi, and I just wanted nothing to do with that. Just wanted a month to myself to reflect and think.
Certainly when you combine that with the altitude component, it results in a real transformation. We see a transformation in people. We see a redefining of what they consider is possible.
I was very cautious of how I was feeling every day. So I was trying to do everything I could to make sure that I just had this really good chance of making it to the top. But I think the thing I want to go home with is a lot more sort of self-respect and a lot more sort of inner joy and passion for, you know, my life in general as well.
Throughout the journey, a number of our clients became pretty clear were asking questions of themselves. Crystal I found particularly inspirational, given she was not able to go as fast as everybody else, and every day without exception she found herself last.
Almost every single day on the trip I was the last person in.
She may have feared whether she was actually going to complete every day, but despite how long it took, she pushed through.
A lot of the guys, had all these experiences walking near each other on the day, and I didn't get to be a part of that. Like, I was literally sort of separated.
She didn't have that camaraderie of the group that you get every day with everybody walking together. And to do that every day over almost 20 days. And she was always bubbly, she was always happy, she never blamed anybody else.
And she'd had a fabulous day no matter what had happened for her or how much longer she'd actually walked than some of the others.
If that was her pace, and she was able to do that every day, she didn't have a problem. She would be successful.
I knew that I had it in me to get to 5,500. So I was confident with that, even though everyone was sort of powering ahead.
A big component of our resilience development relies on the environment that we're in, on the physical and mental challenges that our people are exposed to, on the cultural and spiritual challenges that they're exposed to every day. These are not things that we can readily replicate anywhere in sea level.
At altitude it gets hard.
Nice clean socks out to dry overnight. I'm not sure how they're going to get on the day.
The body tends to slow down. Your simple functions become very, very difficult.
And today, especially, the legs were willing, but the old lungs were sort of working reasonably hard at the higher altitude. A couple of years ago, Liz and I did Kilimanjaro climb. I'd got altitude sickness to the level where the guides didn't want me not so much climbing any higher, but spending the amount of time that it would take to go around there and back, and I was sent down.
And humility is the ability for people to understand that this is a team goal. It's not about individuals, it's not about individual glory, it's about doing whatever it takes to get the team to the top of the mountain.
People say you can always go back and do it again, but it's not the same as achieving it when you're there.
It's a very non-negotiable environment. They have to work together in order to be successful. There's a lot of lessons that elite teams can learn.
We are a team, and I'd love to be able to get up there with everyone else.
Woke up this morning outside the tent, a little bit chilly, and look up, and it was the first time that we actually saw Mera Peak, so a little bit daunting, very exciting.
Feeling pretty excited now that I can see the top of the mountain. Had a good night's sleep, feeling pretty warm, ready to get up there. Looks pretty good.
3 questions at Dean on a number of occasions about, are you tired today? How's your breathing going? And he was always fine, he never had a problem.
At the moment I haven't really struggled at all to get where we've got to today.
He pointed out to everybody that he was a very competitive person.
Pretty competitive in all aspects of my life, I guess. I hadn't really ever thought that I would climb a mountain or be on top of a peak in Nepal. It was not something that I'd really entered my mind until a year or so ago.
And it's absolutely critical for high-performing and high-functioning teams to understand that it's not about an individual glory, it's about everybody working together for a combined result and a combined victory. It's a quality that our Sherpa crew display in spades every day.
I'm not religious in any way, shape or form, but in Kare we all had to put a piece of gear that we were taking to the top of the mountain in. There was no shifting of the earth as far as what it went through, but it's good to be part of it and to understand the significance that it had on especially the guides. But they believe that has an impact on the successful outcome of the trip, and maybe it does.
Some of the guides have climbed Everest 3 or 4 times, have done Mera Peak 22 times. It's like, we did it once and that was tough, but this is what they do on a daily basis.
Some of these guides are going back for trip upon trip. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for almost every person in the world, except the guides that are doing 3 or 4 trips to Mera in a season.
And the fact that we have a fantastic group of people in our Nepalese crew that are very quiet, that are very humble, that are very unassuming, that they can be so influential in determining the outcomes that our people experience is a really positive part of the program.
I don't think any one of us will understand how much work the Sherpas and the cooks and that actually put into making a success of the trip.
We've all been exposed to people in our life that for whatever reason we like being around them. We trust what they say, we respect their message. You know, they could tell us to march off a cliff and we possibly would. So strongly do we believe in their philosophy and the way they go about things. And Kare had experienced 10 days before this a record snowfall. We wouldn't normally expect to have snow at Kare, but on this occasion we had 4 or 5 feet of snow on the ground that the locals had to cut tunnels through to move from one lodge to the other.
The first night going from Kare up to Mera, it's a physical day. Even though you can see where you're going from where you start, it's a big day, it's a big climb. Arriving to high camp and seeing our tents perched on the side of this cliff and looking off this cliff to nothing. Everything was clicking the way it was supposed to. It was just a cohesive group doing what they knew they had to do.
Ben was pretty sick at that stage. He was suffering from altitude sickness.
The whole way leading up was, it's all about Mera Peak, it's all about the summit, but it's just, I had to eat. And if I wasn't able to eat, then I was going to have to think very long and hard about whether I was going to be leaving at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to make the summit.
And it was a situation where somebody who'd been particularly strong for the whole trip was just coming apart at that very last hurdle.
And by the time we got to high camp, he was vomiting blood, his legs were numb.
The stomach reacting to the pain of my head was just vomit constantly. And then the blood. Vomiting blood on snow is not a pretty thing. So Nick and Tigger had discussed with me when I was going to leave the next morning for the summit.
Nick had told him, you just need to drink lots of water.
Nick was frustrated for me, just because I'd been so strong.
And I worked very hard to give Ben every opportunity to come to me and say I'm right to go, because throughout the whole trip Ben was up the front. He was strong each day. He made it into camp each day in good time. He was always in that front group.
One for Ben.
They left it in my hands that I would make that decision in the morning, and I fell asleep.
I didn't really venture out of the tent much at high camp just because I was concerned about his health and I was just keeping an eye on him.
And on summit night, the winds got huge.
So I woke up halfway through the night and the tent was shaking pretty violently. One of the corners had come off.
You could feel the pegs lifting up out of the ground, and me and Ben were just lying in the tent, kind of with our arms spread out a bit more to keep more weight down.
Then I fell back asleep and woke up to Dean's alarm going off. My head still thumping, and sort of laid there for 10 minutes.
There was a big focus on all of us, and Ben's focus would have been to summit. But he was clearly struggling with his health, with the altitude sickness.
But he ultimately made the decision not to proceed, to stay in his tent that night when everybody set off for the summit.
Whether it was a good decision for myself at the time, probably, physically, mentally, obviously I would love to have hit the summit. Everyone wanted to do that. Leading up to the peak was just building of a team. And the thought of me causing half of the team, or even anyone else in the team, to have to turn back is just so much worse than the thought of me not summiting.
Define leadership as a lot of different things. Courage, influence, judgement, humility. His judgement was spot on, because in his own mind and given his condition, he wouldn't have made the summit. His ability to put the team before himself was also a very selfless act at that particular time, because it became very clear to Ben that had he proceeded, had he perhaps made it halfway and had to turn around, then we would have had to allocate support, logistics, a whole range of our infrastructure might have had to have become dedicated to getting him back down safely instead of getting the rest of the people up the mountain safely.
His decision not to come, and therefore not to potentially have to turn around at some point, certainly contributed to the rest of us all actually reaching the summit.
But it was really tough to leave him in the tent, actually. Like, I started to cry a bit. To not be able to make that last little bit, like 6 hours of walking, was really hard.
We knew it was cold, but it was only once we set off that we really discovered how brutal the wind was. And the fact that I've got exceptionally good gear and that my feet and hands were getting cold really made me understand how it must have been for some of the people that were experiencing this for the first time.
Didn't come to a point where turning back was offered to me, but it came to a point where I discussed the safety of myself with my guide.
I didn't know if this was normal. I didn't know if this is what we were expected to climb in. I started to get ready by putting on our Gore-Tex clothes, my down jacket, the harness.
There was occasions there where you would just have to stand face into the snow and just lean into it and wait for those big gusts to blow away, because it felt like you might just get flattened by it, knocked off your feet.
It was just so cold and windy. You'd be on the line of rope, and the rope would be curved all the way out as far as it could go, just from the force of the wind.
And although it was extremely cold, when the sun finally started to peek over the horizon, I was just thinking to myself, when the sun comes up, it'll be warm. And
as the sun slowly came up, we expected to feel a really penetrating warmth from that sunrise, which you often get in Nepal, but not a lot of warmth came due to the wind.
Unfortunately, it seemed to take hours for the sun to come up, and then when it did come up, it wasn't much warmer.
Lakpa was using ice axe to find the path. No one had gone ahead of us. The storm had covered up all of the paths. We didn't even know where the path was. So he just had his little ice axe and he just dug it in and was like, if it didn't go in very far, that was where we were stepping. And if it went in too far, he was like, yep, we're not stepping there.
I suggested, is this normal? Do we need to go back? As much as I want to reach the peak, I don't want to lose a toe over reaching the peak.
You get to a point where people have to be responsible for how they're feeling, how their feet might be feeling, how their core warmth might be feeling, and make those decisions. I had to have a difficult conversation with everybody that it was decision time in terms of their own welfare. I wouldn't have been at all surprised if half of our group had decided to turn around because of reasons of cold and the possibility of cold injuries.
If you're concerned about frostbite, you have to make a choice, whether you go back or continue. He goes, I can't make that choice for you, you have to do it. And he said it really with a lot of force and kind of yelling it to everyone. And it was a bit scary in a way, because it's the first time I really heard Nick kind of yell or, show that kind of force in his voice. And that kind of really made you think, okay, this is really serious. You could get frostbite from this.
This was a tough experience. This was an experience that, I can compare to being above 8,000 metres in terms of the brutality of the wind and the weather. So these guys really soldiered on and committed to what was required in amazing fashion.
I suffered on the way up. I don't know particularly why. I didn't have a very good climb, and a number of people made the remark that they didn't know why I didn't turn back. I was on my knees. I'd had a bit of a bug, coughing and that for a few days.
And Macca had been quite unwell. We'd been quite separated on the ropes, and I'd not really been aware that he'd been feeling quite unwell.
He'd lean on his pole and he'd be coughing and spluttering and would be like, are you okay? And he wouldn't even answer us.
If someone had turned back, then the guides thought that more than maybe 2 or 3 would have turned if one had gone back. And I think I was identified as probably the most likely, as I was struggling a fair bit.
We caught up at that point and we were talking, so everybody else went up and I was staying with him to make sure he was okay and that he was going to come up.
Any personal hurt that was going on at that stage was sort of put to one side because we knew that we were so close to doing what we wanted to do, and all we had to do was shimmy up that snow wall there and get to the top.
I realised I severely underestimated the amount of energy that it was going to take to actually get to the top of the peak, and maybe it was the Kilimanjaro experience that drove me through it.
Well, I think they really believed that they were there to be successful. I think they'd already formed that belief that turning around wasn't an option. They'd seen that they'd prepared better than any other team that was on the mountain. We'd crossed a variety of expeditions on the way that had clearly taken shortcuts, that were clearly on shorter itineraries, that clearly didn't have the infrastructure and the level of preparation that we did. I think they derived a great amount of confidence from how well prepared they were and what we'd done with them in the lead up to make sure they were acclimatised, to make sure their skill sets were up.
So then it got to the last two of us, so I thought, oh well, off I go. And I can just remember thinking how hard it actually was trying to pull up the rope and move up the rope and climb the ice wall, because the approach up to the summit is kind of a long, steady climb. The actual peak seemed to be not very far away, and we eventually finally got there.
They have to basically be in charge and take ownership of earning their own right to be successful, which we call entitlement. That's their ability to earn the right to be successful. And on this particular trip, that's to summit Mera Peak.
I'll never forget that day. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but one of my greatest achievements. But Nepal really kind of hit me, and I wasn't expecting that. And since I've come back, that's all I've kind of been thinking about, and I don't know how long it's going to last. Maybe it won't go away until I've gone back, I'm not sure. But let's see what happens in the future.
Everyone had made that commitment to not just talk about going to Mera Peak, but actually getting on a plane and doing it. And I think that's one of the best qualities a person can have, is to not just put their money where their mouth is, but back up what they say they're going to do by actually doing it. I admire people that have the ability to say they're going to do something and then do it.
There's no way you can get through all of that and not change in a positive way. Everything changes. It's not something you have to make happen.
The emotional journey and the emotional teachings of these programs often take a while to resonate. I think the reason for that initially is that there's such an enormous amount of physical effort going into what has to be achieved. A huge amount of mental, physical challenge has to be overcome every day in order to get your body safely to 6,500 metres.
Son